Good morning and welcome to Frontier Opening Bell. My name is Agnes Gital, and joining me to discuss the African headlines is Joshua Odebesi from Vetiba Capital. Good morning, Joshua.
Good morning, Agnes.
We start by looking at how the markets performed yesterday, and it was a positive rally for most of them, with Nigeria Stock Exchange closing at 1.8%. Ivory Coast, the BRVM, was up by 0.46 basis point. The Egyptian stock market was up by 0.05%, and in Kenya, the Nairobi Stock Exchange was at just minus 1.23%. South Africa, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, was up by 0.65%. And a look at the Nigerian market and the stories making headlines. We have the first story that the Central Bank of Nigeria is considering adding wheat importation to the forex restriction list. I'm sure, Joshua, you'll have a lot to say on that. A move that could see promotion in local production. Apparently, the country spends about 2 billion yearly to import 63 tons of wheat, with Nigerians only producing 1% of the wheat that is consumed locally. And Ghana's currency cedi is expected to record relatively stability against the US dollar for the rest of 2021 in Q4. Only yesterday, we were discussing positive economic recovery in Ghana. So this stability is as a result of a is strengthened by injection from $1.5 billion loan for cocoa industry. And in Ivory Coast, President Ouattara held talks with the oil firm CEO, Eni, on the progress and plans on the country's offshore oil that was discovered early September. I guess that's good news for Ivory Coast. And in Benin, the Bank of Africa Operation half-year results show profit rise by 12%. The bank controls at least 23% of Benin's banking market. An Airtel deal was positive, valued at 89 billion nairas. Joshua, please pick the headlines you'd like to highlight this morning from Nigeria.
Okay. So I think obviously we'll start with the CBN news about the idea of banning the importation of wheat. So currently, if you look at Nigeria right now, you see that there's been quite a lot of inflation with regards to wheat and wheat-related products. So bread prices have been going up for quite a while now because already importers who bring in not just wheat but flour have been having to source their FX from the black market. And obviously we know that black market prices have been growing at a pretty rapid rate in recent weeks. So bread prices have gone up quite significantly. Doesn't stop the fact that a lot of the wheat, the raw wheat that is imported, is used not just to make wheat flour, but to also make semolina flour. And you know that semolina flour is one of the staple foods of Nigeria's diet. But the truth is, obviously, these restrictions only worsen the situation, because if you completely ban the importation of wheat, then that means local production, all the local flour mills who have to source their wheat internationally will not be able to. And that will even worsen the already pretty significant issues that we have right now. So I think that obviously I'm not in favor of these kinds of restrictions. I think they only worsen the problem and they don't actually get to the heart of the matter. The truth is, local production is not sufficient in quality and in output.
But don't you think this probably will encourage the agriculture sector? I guess as your country is very much focused on the oil sector, I guess diversifying, encouraging or investing in the agriculture sector, perhaps this curb in the long run will be positive for the country. My thoughts.
Right. I agree with you that is the theory, and that is the reason why, the list was published in the first place. A lot of things on the list, the idea or the thinking was that we should be able to produce, or make up for the deficits with local production in the long run. Unfortunately, the truth is the issues on ground that are preventing that from happening have not been addressed. So, sure, there are certain people who would see this as an opportunity to invest in wheat production. The problem is, first of all, you have insecurity in the producing parts of the country. So whatever crops you plant, you're at risk of your farm being invaded or unrest and insecurity, not even allowing you to go out and pick your products during harvest season. So there are still those issues, and then there are issues of legislation, there are issues of regulation, where you have multiple regulators, the federal government, the state government, and the local government, all of them vying for a piece of the pie. So even if you say you want to set up a massive wheat farm, which is very, very possible, we have the space, we have the means, but unfortunately, a lot of business people who have gone into things like this have found themselves coming up against the government, who will come and harass you out of business. And I'm speaking from personal experience, where I have family members who went into agricultural production, one or the other, and were literally forced to shut down because they could not continue to acquiesce to all the different levels of government and their demands, mostly financial demands, not even allowing production to go ahead without meeting certain financial demands when you have not even produced everything that you set out to produce. But yeah, that is just a problem of policy. So sure, from an economics standpoint, banning the sale of FX for the importation of wheat makes sense and should encourage some sort of local production. But in practice, it's a lot more complicated than that, and that is the unfortunate truth. Also, the Airtel deal. So basically, Airtel has announced that they want to buy the shares of the privately held subsidiary Airtel Nigeria from the minority shareholder, so about 8.3% minority stake, which they want to buy it at about 55.8 naira, which comes to about $168 million at an exchange rate of 413.5, which is what they are using for their conversion. I know that for a very long time, the directors of Airtel have been attempting to buy out minority shareholders, and I'm wondering whether this is the final price that has been agreed. Because for years and years and years, there were a bunch of court cases against some minority shareholders. They tried to take some of those shares back by force. When the arbitrations did not go their way, I guess they were forced to come to the negotiating table. I'm wondering if this is just the price that they've agreed to pay. Now, this is a positive for First Bank specifically because they do hold some shareholdings, and also it is possible that some debt obligors to First Bank also hold shares with Airtel Nigeria, and so this buyout could positively affect FBN's income statement and their non-performing loans. So I think it's quite a positive one if it goes ahead as stated.
Thank you very much, Joshua. I really never understood the ethics of buying back shares. That's a discussion for another day. I guess we have all the time to discuss it. And on to East African stories. And the headlines from East Africa is MTN Group agreed to list 20% of its Uganda unit on the country stock exchange. The latest move by the Africa's largest wireless carrier is to allow more local investors to buy and sell shares in individual units and also diversify its shareholding. And Stanbic Bank has moved to court seeking recovery of 27 billion shillings. I think that Uganda shilling. The case is premised on unpaid loan advance to FOL Logistics, bad debts. But I guess they will try and resolve that the best way they can. And in mining, Anglo American PLC announces a number of senior leadership changes. This follows the departure of the CEO, who's been in the company for 14 years. He will be replaced by South Africa's Themba Mkhwanazi, currently the CEO of Kumba Iron Ore. The senior management changes will take effect as of January 2022. The current account deficit of Tanzania widened by $1.42 million US, and this is from $1.27 million US in a similar period last year, and I guess this is as a result of decline in the tourism sector. Then Tanzania's telecom giant Vodacom and Tigo lost market shares to other competitors in the second quarter of 2021. So the five companies which have registered positive growth include Airtel Tanzania, Tanzania Telecommunication, and Halotel, Zantel, and Smile. It's great to see Airtel taking strides in Tanzania just after change in management. Joshua, do you have a pick of any of the story from East Africa you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, well, just to talk on the first of all on the MTN story, like you mentioned, they are really pushing the floating their shares across all the markets where they have operations, which I think is obviously a very good thing. It's a very positive thing in terms of giving us an idea of exactly how their operations are faring in all of these countries. But it also helps them, obviously, with regards to stuff like dividend payments back to the parent company in South Africa and things like that. But overall, and it's also a great way to raise cash in your specific markets where you would like to expand. And I wish that a lot more, international companies would do the same. I think Airtel just listing only one company, for example, doesn't give us a full and clear idea of exactly how things are faring in all the other markets, although they do sort of break down to a certain extent. But management differs across these markets, and so strategies are obviously going to be different. So to analyze them individually makes for better, richer content than just analyzing, the parent company by itself without having access to the specific markets where they exist. The Airtel story as well, just looking into, again, I think we've spoken about Tanzania and the fact that, they sort of opened up their markets and hopefully, I think what I'll say is the way I see it, obviously, the customer having as much choice and as much access as possible is always best. So, not having just one giant monopoly controlling prices, controlling the quality of service will always be better for the consumer. So I think that on the whole, it's more positive if there are more people in the market,
Yeah.
providing services going forward.
Absolutely. I think it's good for the consumers. And also, I think for you, Joshua, the new Airtel boss is from Nigeria. I think he started his term only this month. And his priority, obviously, is to take advantage of fintech and mobile money that is quite successful in the region. And obviously, it's great to see giants like Vodacom not dominating the market and seeing other players, smaller players, including the Tanzania telco, also doing well in the market. But it takes a lot. I guess it's a lot of efficiency, customer service, diversified products. You're absolutely right that the consumer benefits, and also in terms of better services and cost. And on to South African market, the headlines there again, mining sector. And according to PwC, the mining sector is crucial for South Africa's economy. Sometimes I tend to differ because of the impact the mining sector has on the environment. But according to PwC, the sector has benefited from increased commodity prices and improved production. And production levels have gone to pre-COVID levels, which is quite good. Sibanye-Stillwater said it has completed repurchase of 8 billion rands of approximately 147 million shares in terms of its capital return program. The buyback underpins the company's commitment to creating value for all stakeholders through disciplined application of their capital allocation framework. Another interesting to see buybacks happening across the region. And South African bank Absa and Sanlam have announced plans to combine their assets management businesses in a deal that will result in a business with assets under management, administration, and advice in excess of $66 billion. And then Eskom South Africa, coal-reliant power utility, has become the world's biggest emitter of sulfur dioxide, a pollutant linked to ailments ranging from asthma to heart attacks. This is according to the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air. This, I'm sure, Joshua, you'll have some comments on in the run up to COP26, where the companies are looking at ESG and operating in sustainable ways. I think ESCOM has to find ways of operating and reducing emission of pollutant gases. And Pandega Holdings reported a loss of $12.7 million for 6 months ending in June 2021. The mining firm, however, has a confident outlook for the future. Any stories for your pick, Joshua?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, the sulfur dioxide story is quite interesting for a number of reasons. First of all, currently we're seeing a little bit of a energy crisis in China, simply due to the fact that there have been a lot of policy decisions that have affected their level of output and the level of production. Number one, obviously, being their goals to cut emissions by 2030, but also because of their political spat with Australia sort of blocking their level of importation of coal. Now, coal, as you mentioned, is one of the biggest contributors to, you know, not just global warming, but also emissions of sulfur dioxide. But I'm guessing the reason why it might not be such that much of an issue in China is their own level of their standard, or their method of energy production using coal. So to have South Africa's ESCOM be the world's largest sulfur dioxide emitter is quite disturbing for obviously a bunch of reasons, health related, but also environmental as well. But I'm not entirely sure that there's anything that's in the near term anyways that ESCOM can do about it, or that the South African government themselves can do about it. Because if they were to introduce any kind of legislation to address that, it would raise energy costs quite significantly, I'm sure, and would probably lead to rolling blackouts, for the foreseeable future, just as the energy company tries to transition away from all these, harmful gas emitting means of energy production. So I think that's a little bit of a challenge across the developing world in general, actually, because a lot of us are still reliant on these heavy emitters to produce electricity. And so until we're able to transition into cleaner, renewable energy, which is quite an expensive investment already, will cost trillions of dollars across the entire African continent alone, I think we're in a little bit of a catch-22 situation, and we're not, we're not able to fully commit to a cleaner environment or a cleaner way of generating electricity just yet, unfortunately.
You seem to be giving up even before you make an attempt. But ESCOM, as you know, has been really struggling, union issues, and also it was one of the companies listed under state capture, mismanagement. So this news of being the largest emitter is quite disturbing. But I believe perhaps we need to explore sustainable ways of energy production, renewable energy, for example, if ever we're going to have we're going to ever protect the environment. But you're right, it's a catch-22. What do you do and what don't you do? But we wait and see. And lastly, we cover the North African market, and the leading story is that Egypt is to issue Sukuk laws before the end of the year. The law will regulate the issuance of sovereign bonds in accordance with Islamic Sharia principle. Egypt has been diversifying its financing sources and has come to the market with a Sukuk issue of $500 million. Morocco Treasury plans to raise 9.5 billion dirhams in the month of October. And Tunisia inflation stabilized at 6.2% in September. And in Egypt, it's a national day for the Egyptian, according to the Central Bank of Egypt, as the nation commemorates victory over Sinai. And that's a wrap from Frontier Opening Bell. Thank you very much for joining us. I thank Joshua Odebisi, Vertiva Capital, for sharing your insights with us today. See you tomorrow.